Hello, students. Welcome to this lecture of today's. Today, I, Renu Chandra, English lecturer for class 12th, I am going to teach you something about poetry and its details. So, what we are going to learn is a special section in literature of English. Poetry is a very beautiful part of English literature because it expresses our feelings and emotions in much better way than the other forms. So for that, we should know what is poetry. Poetry, according to some great poets, is best words in their best order. This is said by S.T. Coleridge. According to William Wordsworth, poetry is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. According to poet Matthew Arnold, he says, poetry is a criticism of life under the laws of poetic truth and poetic beauty. Now, you should know how many forms of poetries are. Let me tell you. The first is epic. It deals with one great complex action in a lofty style and in fullness of details, such as Valmiki's Ramayana, Vyasa's Mahabharata, Milton's Paradise Lost. Next is lyric. Lyric, it is a short subjective poem full of music and emotions, such as stanzas written in dejection near Naples by P.B. Shelley. Then comes elegy. An elegy is a song of lament and mourning. Mostly, sadness is expressed through elegy, such as O Captain, My Captain by Walt Whitman. Next is ode. The style of an ode is lofty and dignified. Whenever anything the poet tries to describe in a very dignified manner, then ode he or she writes ode. Example is Ode to a Nightingale by John Keats. Next comes ballet. A ballet is a group song telling a story, usually sad and painful. This is sung in groups. The example is La Belle Dame Sans Mercy by John Keats. Then comes sonnet. Sonnet are very beautiful poems of only 14 lines. Example, Mercy by William Shakespeare. Now, you have known what is poetry and how many types of poetry are, its different forms. Next we will come how to make the poetry more beautiful. For that, we use figures of speech. And as this is in your syllabus, I am going to introduce you with all the different types of figures of speech first, then we'll start the poems in our syllabus. Figures of speech are used to make poem attractive. It is a departure from ordinary use of words with a view to increase their effect. That is, with writing simple words and making its arrangement more properly, we can make the effect of the sentence more beautiful and more interesting. Different forms of figures of speech are simile, metaphor, personification, apostrophe, oxymoron, hyperbole, and onomatopoeia. In your syllabus, you should know the definition of these figures of speech along with examples. That is going to come in your exam. And the second will be you should know to identify the figures of speech. So I shall start with simile. In this, comparison of two objects of different kinds which have at least one point in common is used. In this, words of comparison like, as, so as are used. Example, we bear her along like a pearl on a string. The next example is, she hangs like a star in the dew of our song. Then comes metaphor. Metaphor is also a comparison between two, but it is known as an implied simile or a condensed simile, where words of comparison are not used, but comparison is made between the two objects, things, ideas, feelings, etc. Example, life is a dream. The next is, the camel is the ship of the desert. Here, life is compared with a dream, but no word of comparison is written in it. Next comes the personification. This figure of speech ascribes intelligence and personality to inanimate things. That is, inanimate things are written as if they have quality similar to a person. Example, death lays his icy hands on kings. Next, let not ambition mock their useful toil. Next is apostrophe. It is a direct address to the dead, to the absent, or to a personified object or idea. In this figure of speech, we directly speak to a person which is not in front of us, but we address as if it is in front of us, so we talk to him or her directly. Example, O grave, where is thy victory? O death, where is thy sting? Next is oxymoron. It is a special form of antithesis where by two contradictory qualities are predicted at once for the same thing. That is, words with opposite meaning are written in a same sentence or a phrase together. Example is, and having nothing he hath all. The second example is, the boy is regularly irregular. Here, in these two sentences, having nothing and all, both are contradictory, both are opposite, but they are written in the same sentence. In the same way, regularly and irregular, both the words are antonyms of each other, but they are used in the same sentence. Next comes hyperbole. It is a figure of speech in which a statement is made emphatic by overstatement. That is, things are expressed better or worse than they really are. The poet expresses the things in much better way or many times worse than they really are. Example, 10,000 saw I at a glance. The next is, Belinda smiled and all the world was gay. Last is onomatopoeia. The sound suggests the sense of the word spoken. The word doesn't have any meaning, but according to the sound, we sense the meaning of the word. Example, the bees are humming. Grunt, grunt goes the hog. Humming is not a meaningful sentence word, but in this sentence, we know humming means some type of sound created by the bees. So that comes under onomatopoeia figure of speech. Grunt, grunt. This word also expresses some sound, and that sound which comes through the hog is understood and written by the writer. So, students, I think you must have understood about the poetry and the different forms of it, figures of speech and different forms of figure of speech, its definitions and examples. Now, for the students of Aryakanya Inter College, there is a homework for you. The homework will be learn the definitions of all the figures of speech taught along with examples, and the second homework will be write at least 5 sentences each of figures of speech of your own in your homework copies. Thank you.